Hey guys, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Tavern's YouTube page. Today we're asking the question, should Matt Hardy's match at All Out, should that have been stopped? And before we get into that, make sure you guys click on the link in the description below, subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to our podcast page. With the link, it'll take you to the podcast where you can rate, subscribe, and review. It'll take you to our social media. It'll also take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store where you can pick up some of our shirts. But we're going to get into this because there's a lot to talk about. So Matt Hardy's match, should it have been stopped?
Man, that's a big question, and there's a lot of different takes. Like, did it look like it should have been stopped? Yeah, it kind of did. Do you obviously Matt's going to want to continue, but the doctor, I guess Tony Khan gave the order to stop it initially.
Yeah.
And then they cut to Sammy and they gave the doctor time to check Matt Hardy out, and the doctor cleared him to continue. So that's a medical professional. Do you go on the advice of a medical professional and say it could continue? And then you've got Rebby Hardy, Matt's wife, just losing her absolute shit, rightfully so, on Twitter. I think her and all of Matt's three little boys were at home in their theater watching All Out. She sees a bump like that, and she's losing her mind. And if you go by what she's said, maybe it should have been stopped. So there's so many opinions out there on how this should have been handled. I honestly, as a fan, not knowing it, a lot of fans on Twitter want to act like they know what's going on. All I can do is trust the opinions of the people closest to the situation. And you've got the owner of the company, you've got the doctor, you've got Matt Hardy himself, and you have Matt Hardy's wife, all with varying opinions on how this should have been handled. So the answer to your question from my vantage point is I really don't know.
I don't think there's a way for us to know. And honestly, I think the only thing that we can do is trust that Tony Khan and Doc Sampson know what's best for the situation.
Right.
That's all. Us having an opinion on it doesn't really mean anything. We're not there. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it looked bad. It did look bad. But who am I to sit at home and I don't know what they did while they cut to Sammy. I don't know what they did to clear him to go forward.
Exactly. And there's situations we've seen in the past in other sports where sometimes something looks awful to the naked eye, but it's not as bad. Yeah. And then you have a situation like, remember when Dale Earnhardt died, in that crash, they had it all over the news. And I remember thinking that crash didn't look like a crash that would kill a driver, but it did. Right. So it's like, unless you're there, you don't know the severity of what's going on. I will say that I don't think Tony Khan or that doctor are going to put him in a situation that could be dire.
No, and that's what I was saying.
There's no need.
Yeah, why would they do that? If they put him in a situation that's dire and then something happens to further it and we don't ever have Matt Hardy again.
That hurts your company.
Right.
And I think they obviously showed that they did have his best interest in mind, because they immediately stopped the match. They rang the bell and there was confusion after that. You thought that, so obviously the trigger response from Tony Khan was in the match. And he even said that, I thought Matt was hurt, so I ended it. And then once they cut to Sammy walking through the back out to the ring, that's when Doc Sampson had time to actually check him out. And that's when they made the call to continue the match.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I I don't know, man. The match was a stipulation where if Matt Hardy loses, then he's gone forever.
Right.
So they got to the finish. They did the finish quick, and Matt Hardy won the match.
Right. They went right to the finish.
Yeah.
So obviously, even with Doc Samson being like, okay, he can continue, there was still concern there because they went right to the finish. They didn't have the match play out. They just went right to the finish. So obviously, even with the clearing of the doctor, they were being hesitant on what to do.
I mean, I feel like it was a situation where he was like, you know, you can continue, but it has to end now.
Right. Right. Just get to the spot.
Get to the spot, end it, and that's it.
And then they sent him to the doctors, and the reports are kind of all over the place because you had Tony Khan came out and tweeted an update on Matt Hardy. It's great news. Matt's okay. We sent him to the hospital as a precaution, and he's passed the MRI and CT scans. He doesn't have a concussion, and he's being driven home now. Matt will be at Dynamite on Wednesday to thank you, amazing fans, for your support. Okay, so there's one. But then Rebby, Matt's wife, comes out, and I think this was around the same time of that tweet, and she said they needed additional imaging done after his CT. He's still in the hospital, 1,000% concussion. Anyone with eyes could have told you that, though. Now, I'm not saying Rebby's lying, but to me, it comes off like a pissed off, scared wife saying what her eyes told her. Anyone can see. Tony's came off as more shooting, not Rebby's comments seemed like they were led by emotion, where Tony's seemed like they were led by just, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Like the facts of the situation.
Yeah. I mean, with her saying 1,000% concussion, I mean, if I looked at it and had to say whether he had a concussion, I mean, by looking at the video, I'd say 1,000% he has a concussion.
I'd say, yeah, I'm with her on that. Now, out hindsight, like looking, if I see that, I'm right along with Rebby. It looks like 100% he's going to have a concussion. But where it gets a little murky here is she's in North Carolina. She's not at the hospital. She's probably getting information from Matt, though. I'm sure they were speaking on the phone. So that's like, okay, what's going on there? But I can't see Tony saying he didn't have a concussion when that could come out in the news. So if Tony would come out and say he does not have a concussion, and then it comes out in the press that he did have one, that's going to make Tony and AEW's health policies, they're going to get a lot of negative feedback.
Yeah. I just don't think they would say anything to be detrimental to their business.
I don't either. I mean, what good is it? It was one match on the card. It's not like everything hinged on this one match.
Right.
Why would they risk calling into question their health protocol and all of that? Why would they risk all of their reputation and risk the business on this one moment? That's where I'm kind of like, what's really going on? And I hope, he said that Matt's on Dynamite this Wednesday. I hope Matt shines some light on what really happened, because if anyone's going to know, it's going to be Matt Hardy.
Well, that's who we're going to have to hear from. That's who we're going to have to hear from before anything is cleared up.
Yeah,
because we're going to have to hear from him.
Yeah, you don't want to call the wife a liar. I'm not saying Rebby's lying at all. I see, like, if that was my wife taking a spot like that and falling and cracking her head open. I would be pissed off at the company. I would be fired up. So I understand where she's coming from. But I also don't know why the company would lie about it. So I'm kind of torn of like, you know, this person says this and this person says that, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the truth is going to lie with Matt Hardy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be the one that's going to be able to let you know. And I think, you know, Brian Alvarez had tweeted, was told Matt Hardy was doing a lot better today. And then Rebby said, funny, neither I nor Matt have spoken with you. Right. So it seems like she's just really upset.
Well, she has a history of speaking her opinion through Twitter completely unfiltered. I mean, she would rail against WWE back in the day. When him and Jeff went back there, she was always very critical of certain things. So she speaks her mind without really thinking about it sometimes, I would say. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm interested to see what Matt says to get all this cleared up.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Do you guys think that the match should have been stopped? I mean, obviously everybody's going to have a different opinion on what should have happened. I mean, if you think it should have been stopped, let us know. Let us know in the comments, because I want to know what everybody thinks about it, because it did look pretty bad.
Yeah, it did.
All right, guys. We'll be back at you soon with more videos.